Okay, hello. It's August 24th, almost September, which is crazy. This is the CI/CD UX meeting, and there's just one announcement that we have Friends and Family Day on the 29th, which is Monday. And then Hyana had also asked for us to just give progress on, I think this was supposed to be for Q3 OKRs, but it says Q2. Does anybody have anything that's like blocked or at risk? All right. Any other announcements or general stuff? Okay. All right. I'll move into the items for Pipeline Insights and Runner then. For Runner, we're running a category maturity scorecard for the first time ever for Runner Fleet. It's been going really well. I've done 4 sessions. I have one more scheduled for next week, I think. And we're shooting to be scored at complete. So right now we have that. For those 4 participants, we've gotten to that score. So we'll just see if we stay there. And then for Pipeline Insights, this was something I wanted to share with the group because there's a lot of overlap with our groups. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. So in a test report for a pipeline, if there are child pipelines that are included, then the tests from that child pipeline will be aggregated into this single report at the parent pipeline level. And the problem is the jobs, aka the tests that are in those jobs that are listed here, we don't tell you if they're from this pipeline or if they're from the child pipeline, and there can be many children. So what I wanted to do was indicate which jobs are from which pipeline, basically. And I added this child badge here because it looks like we were doing that within the pipeline visualization. I'll zoom in a bit here. We use this child badge. I thought it would be a good way to reuse that pattern, but what I did differently was added the pipeline ID because I assume that there can be many children and I wanted there to be a difference. And then I was thinking that you could just click on that badge and it would bring you to that child's test report. So it would be like a similar page to this, but it would just be for that pipeline. Is there any feedback that anyone has on this?
I have a lot of questions, which I think both you and Nadia could answer. So when I come to this tab on the pipeline overview page, I expect the experience to be very similar to what I would see on the jobs page, on the jobs tab, right? The list. Now, I have added a link here in the agenda. That's for one of the pipelines that's running currently for GitLab. And when I navigate through the multi-project and the child pipeline, like upstream, downstream, so what I see is the list in the jobs, it doesn't change until I go ahead and select the pipeline in the graph. Like, for example, if I'm in the parent pipeline, the job list is not going to have the items which are in the child pipeline until I go and select the child pipeline.
Okay.
Now,
so you're saying we don't show the jobs for child pipelines basically at the parent level?
That's what I felt when I checked this in the morning.
Okay.
I wasn't aware of this actually, so I had no idea that we have some kind of connection there. So just to confirm, when you expand the child pipeline in the pipeline graph, only then we show the jobs from that pipeline in the jobs tab?
If you like just look at the badge and see when Gina like clicks on on expanding the downstream, it doesn't change. Like the number of jobs inside the tab, it doesn't change at all. It doesn't
Uh-huh.
expand. And it doesn't give a new list until you click on the pipeline, like child pipeline numbers to explicitly
Okay.
say that now I'm looking at the details for the child pipeline or the
Oh,
parent
like
pipeline.
that. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh-huh, yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like an issue, something that we have
Yeah.
to consider separately. I've never heard this come up. Um, yeah, it seems reasonable to update it if you expand the graph.
Right. So I
Um,
think what Gina is doing is the experience that's expected, but the overall experience for the jobs tab, it needs to be updated as well.
yeah.
So I have a comment around the usage of the badge for this. So currently the badges on the child pipelines, they're not clickable. They're just meant to show you the type of the item that it is. And oftentimes the badges in the UI are not clickable. So they don't have a strong visual affordance that you can click on them, and users are not necessarily used to that. So my concern would be that this link would not be discoverable.
Mhm.
And also placing the ID inside the badge makes it kind of more difficult to read in a way because it's together with the world child, and makes it more difficult to copy and paste it if you need to search for the pipeline, for example. So these are just like my thoughts on using the badge here. I do like using badge for the child just to show that it's the child pipeline, because it's exactly the same what we show in the pipeline graph. But maybe the ID could be a separate link, or yeah, something that the user will immediately see as a navigation item, because we do use linked IDs a lot in the UI to navigate between pipelines and jobs.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, I can play around with separating it out. I agree. I like the reuse of the badge just because it's already something that we use. And I was thinking of maybe doing a full other like column that includes the pipeline ID. Um, I'll think about that more though.
Mhm.
Also, this might
What?
be
Oh,
this might be unrelated, but we were actually finding the opposite, where we had a success badge on the deployment, the environment page, and people thought it was clickable, even though it wasn't, because it was a badge. So
I think I know why, because the badges on the pipeline page, they are clickable.
yeah. So I'm wondering if you could style the badge a little bit differently where it looks like it's clickable. I don't know what options for badges there are, but I feel like if there is like a badge version that looks like it's clickable. And when we made it not clickable, people were confused.
Is there any guidance from Pajamas about whether or not these should be interactive elements?
I think they can be both,
Okay, cool.
but
yeah, I'm trying to think
pull
of
up the docs.
like issue labels. I guess those are technically labels, not badges, but those are clickable and sometimes not clickable. One other question I had was just thinking about like the idea of having the sophisticated simplicity like thing that's going on right now. I was wondering if it made sense to maybe keep this like the child pipeline tests collapse by default, because we do that in the pipeline too. Like you have to expand it to show the child pipeline. So I'm wondering if it would be worth exploring, I don't know, a show hide like toggle to show and hide them. It was just a thought.
You mean in the pipeline graph?
I mean, like in this
Oh,
jobs list.
yeah.
and Adding like a toggle here.
it sounds like something that could be also a filter, like a drop down, because you would filter by a type of job, a sorting mechanism of sort.
That's
Or
true.
the bridge or trigger job can be expanded. Like the job that's calling the downstream or the child pipeline, that can be that can be treated differently visually, and there can be an option to expand it and collapse it.
It might just be something that I need to like validate a little bit too, because yeah, I feel like I don't feel confident enough to be like, let's complicate this by adding
Yeah.
filters just yet.
And I think, Gina, what you can do too is come up with just 2 or 3 key tasks and then look at the impact on the flow. But I'm thinking that we want to optimize for when they're debugging.
Mhm. So, okay, yeah, that's a good idea too. Okay. Let's stop sharing. Thank you for the feedback. That was really great.
So fun to have everybody on the call. It's like live brainstorming. Okay.
I know it's very useful. My last thing, we can take this async if we wanted to, but I just feel like I'm taking forever creating issues with the feature detailed template. I feel like there's a lot of different sections I need to fill out, labels to add, and I was wondering if people had best practices around making it more efficient.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I can relate, and I don't have any specific tips because my process is manual, but I see that Vitika mentioned templates, and I can also second that. It's very important to use templates.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really solve. I mean, it applies some labels, actually, some basic labels. So
Yeah, some. Mostly you have to delete what that implies. But I've been talking in terms of efficiency because you highlighted that, Gina. I would say it makes you efficient, but in a very different way. For example, it really makes people think about the problem statement when they're filling out this detailed template. So in pipeline execution, when we started to get to the like very heavy backlog that was there, there were about 3.5 thousand issues. So we started to be very careful about like what exists there and what we need to process duplicates and what is not valid anymore. But we started to notice that people open issues with just 2 lines, like this is what I want, this is how it should be done, like with proposal. So we started to like discourage that. And every issue, when it used to come to me for triaging, especially through that bot issue that's created over the weekend, I always used to make it a point, I still do, to like request people to like apply the template and fill out the questions. And that has really made everyone think about the proposals that they're trying to put across. Like, what is it that they're trying to solve? Who is it for? Is it just for that one person?
Mhm.
So even it feels very heavy to do that at that particular time. In pipeline execution, that has like really helped us.
I just had a comment that I don't currently use templates. I totally get what you're saying though, Vitika. I guess I don't know if it's required to use the template, but maybe for me the reason why I don't is sometimes we'll just have like a small bug or something that needs to be addressed, and I never want to be a barrier to document that in an issue, and it can always be refined later. But maybe I'm a bit lucky that when my team is creating issues, they usually have a strong why, and like a, you know, like maybe I'm just a bit fortunate in that regard. In terms of expediting, I set up a keyboard shortcut in system preferences that will apply the kind of like 10 most common labels that I use. So then I just literally just have two keystrokes, and then I have like the labels, and then I can just edit them from there. That has helped a bit.
That's really cool. I didn't even know that that was a thing.
I can
Yeah,
make
that's
a
really
like a
helpful.
1-minute video of how to do it, and I'll post it on our channel or on UX or something.
Sure.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Please.
Yeah, that would be awesome because I remember when I had my co-working session with Vitica, I was asking about like how do you copy and paste labels, or is there a more efficient way to add the same labels to issues? Like
Yeah.
when we were creating UX themes, all of them had the same labels, but I had to manually add them. So if there's any way to speed up that process, that
Right.
would be awesome.
I use a very manual method, so I keep like the shortcuts to create those labels that I have to paste on the issues handy on my notepad. So I just copy paste.
Very cool. Okay. Thank you for all the conversation. Emily, do you want to go through your items?
Yeah, so my first item is release held office hours last week, which was actually a huge success. It was surprising how many people we got to attend the first one. And during this office hours, we really walked through like how community contributors can contribute, like open the floor to ask them questions. One of the engineers kind of went through how to find issues that are available to take on, and then tips and tricks on how to get help on MRs, like how to tag us in those. So it was like a very helpful thing to do, and we're planning to hold another one in September around UX front end, which hopefully will increase the amount of like community contributions we get, since I know that's a big thing right now.
Yeah, that's the exact thing I pointed out to my product manager yesterday in the meeting, that release had an office hour. I looked at the agenda. They like really they highlighted the opportunity for contribution so well, and like I'm not sure if we have the bandwidth to do this at this moment, but yeah, I'm really happy to like learn from you, like how that went.
Yeah, I noticed some of the like main questions we had were just how to get feedback. So people who wanted to contribute were curious about like when they should like create the MR. Can they do it when they're still working on something if it's still a draft, and how to tag people to get feedback on things, tips on how to find issues in like the languages they're comfortable working on, and all of that. And we also had some questions too that were a little off topic about how to look for open jobs at GitLab. So I think just be aware that some people might be coming in because they are also interested in working at GitLab and having answers to that as well.
Yeah, that's great.
I just, oh, sorry.
Oh, and I'm just saying like a closing statement. Like I hope more teams are able to do something similar.
I put the question, what are office hours in this context? But I'm gathering that you had kind of an open conversation with users of GitLab. Is that what it was?
Yeah, so what we did was we created I think it was on meetup.com, just like a release office hours, added in an agenda, and then the release team kind of advertised it on LinkedIn. We kind of went to our older community contributors and told them that they could come to this. So we like advertised it out a little bit to just the broader community who would be interested in seeing how a release worked, to come with questions. And yeah, it's like open to absolutely anyone who's interested. The only thing we did learn is that it's important to have this through like Meetup or another site and not just have an open Zoom link, because apparently Zoom bombing is like a big thing if you just randomly put a Zoom link out there. So having kind of like stricter access into the meeting was important.
That's awesome. That's such a good idea. I'll have a closer look into it.
Yeah, sounds good. Cool. And then the only other thing is on release, we're planning an onboarding focused improvement to our empty state pages, because we realized kind of across the board, the empty state pages, they're not very, like they're all slightly different design wise. They could have more helpful like CTAs for people just landing on them. So this is like an idea we're doing, but just wanted to share it out because I think it's helpful like across all stage groups at GitLab. Cool. And that's it, unless there's any questions.
I have a quick suggestion for the empty states. Just like a quick thought that I have. I don't know if there's probably reasons why you did it this way, but it would be interesting to see the buttons placed underneath the empty state UI copy and the illustrations. I think this is how we usually deal with those empty states. But I guess there's gonna be like a table here or like a list of items, and then the buttons will be at the top. But I think usually what we do is we have the action buttons inside the empty state, and then once there are items to show, then the buttons are placed above the items list.
Yeah, I think right now all three of the empty states and deployments look different. So I think the
Mhm.
first step is kind of like getting that CTA. The CTA is to be consistent across the three of them, getting like a good CTA, finessing some of like the copy. So I think there's some really simple things we can do to fix it up. But yeah,
Yeah, sure, makes sense.
the main thing is, yeah, like you said, I think the CTA on the release page is up in the top right corner, which is kind of missing. So I think just getting the CTAs in the empty state would be an interesting one to do. So if that's it, I can pass over to Vitika.
Okay, yeah, so I wanted to update about the insights that I've learned through a very recent validation exercise that I ran. It was unmoderated on user testing, and it kind of gave some good like peep into how users are using their user namespace today, and what kind of projects they host under there, how many projects they host. So it turns out that users usually put just like small personal projects directly under their namespace, and those are not the kind that are very engagement heavy. Like it's something that they only interact with by themselves, and that's the reason like they also don't have much concerns around what's the CI/CD minutes consumption, because there might not even be a pipeline for those projects. And there is no contribution related concerns for sure for these projects, and that implies that there's little or no need to control the minute consumption. Then user namespace related settings. I mean, we did provide them with certain tasks in the test, but it was really difficult for them to go to the setting options which are existing today. It was not even something that I had added on the top. It was something that had been there since long. For example, we are still able to see the usage quota for the projects which are directly under your namespace through the user settings, usage quota page. But the way we land on the user setting is kind of weird, because today if you click on your profile picture and you go to preferences, that takes you to user settings preferences. And for me, that has been my gateway into the settings. And that's how like I always land there. I don't know if there's like any other way that someone else uses. And that gives everybody an idea that maybe it's just something that's used for customizing like how GitLab looks for you, and like not do anything deeper than that. So some resonated with this thought, and the others expected the quota to be controlled through the existing usage quota tab, because it was pretty clear for them that this is quota and I'm getting to like control my quota, it has to be through this tab. But the interesting part is we never do that. Like so far, we have never done that. It only kind of shows you like what your consumption is like, but that page has never historically been used for allowing users to kind of set any configurations as far as I remember. It's mostly just to view and like consume the information about the consumption. Now, apart from that, what else? Yeah, so this feature, as we had already expected, users mentioned that it would be more useful for groups and subgroups. Now, I'll give a little background about like why we had started with user namespace. So this feature is like currently we only allow users to control their minutes consumption. Minutes is the resource that's required to run the pipelines. We only allow them to control this through the admin view. And all that is done today is the admins are able to add like a standard cap to the usage. So they can define like all the groups can only use 2000 minutes, like they cannot exceed that. But at a more granular level, like when it comes to projects, because a group can have a lot many projects. It can have subgroups and subgroups under that, and under that many projects. So it gets pretty complex. Now at project level, maintainers who are working on these projects, they would want some sort of control, because not all the projects inside a group or a subgroup has the same amount of importance. So they would want to make sure that this particular one that sees a lot of contribution from our users and is very critical to our business should always be able to run its pipeline. And it shouldn't happen that this other project that's lying parallel to it, which is not as much of a priority to us, it ends up consuming all the CI/CD minutes that's allotted to this group. So to avoid that situation, we started working on this feature. But while we were having the discussion around like how we would make this happen, we realized that the moment we touch upon groups and subgroups, this is going to get so much complicated, because then we have to take into account how there'll be the subdivisions of the minutes, and how would we surface the quota, like this much out of this much is used by this group. This is what you're left with. This is what you can do with it. So we started with the easiest path available so that we can also validate it. We started with user namespace, because that's like flat. That's just one level, like the projects which are directly under your user namespace. And once that happens, once we get good insights from those, we decided that we'll create issues and we'll make improvements, and then we'll move to group subgroups. I see that we are very close to time, and Nadia also has to go. So I'm happy to take questions on Slack as well. And I'll pass it on to Nadia.
Thanks, Vedika. Yeah, so this milestone, I'm participating in beautifying UI. There's an issue where I'm gathering all of the ideas that I want to work on, brainstorming some solutions. So I'm trying to keep it like one thread for one improvement. So if there's anything that you would like to work on, but maybe your team doesn't have capacity or anything like that, feel free to drop your ideas into that issue. And I can't promise that it will get picked up, because also the engineer I'm working with, he has limited capacity this milestone, which is unfortunate because I dedicated half of my time to this, and I think he dedicated like 20% of his time to this. But we're going to choose like the top impact, maybe also easiest to do kinds of improvements, and run with that. So drop your comments there. Yeah, I see that you have a lot of suggestions, but let's keep it read-only for the sake of time. And another thing I wanted to share is our results from the secrets management jobs to be done research. So it was meta-analysis of existing research that we have around secrets, and there's lots of great insights that came out of it that you can check out in this issue that I linked. I summarized everything in the issue description, so you can just skim through that if you want. And wanted to point out that secrets is our top priority right now for pipeline authoring. Generally, as far as new features are concerned, our main focus is secrets management and the CI/CD catalog work that we're doing. And there's NMR for updated secrets jobs to be done. And there's a lot of overlap there that we're finding with compliance and security. So we'll be collaborating with those teams to make sure that we connect the secrets management workflow to management of your security policies and compliance policies and so on. Yeah, and now on to Katie.
Cool. My first one's just an FYI. In case people don't know, we have a dedicated product analyst named Nicole who we can make UX data requests to. She can help with structuring the kind of the right questions to ask to remove bias, and implementation in the code for tracking things, and then also Sisense dashboards. She is across all of ops, so she also works with many PMs, so she's got quite a lot of competing priorities. So she did request that when we are creating issues to kind of indicate the urgency and the priority. But I just didn't know that we had this relationship, so in case anyone else didn't. Not much else to report for package. I'm still covering ecosystem until like November. But we're working on some process improvements in package about how we refine and how issues come into the milestone. I've also gotten the opportunity to speak to a number of enterprise customers because our PM is on parental leave. And you might have seen Erica and I discussing in Slack yesterday. Now that I have those relationships with those enterprise customers and TAMs, I would love to recruit them. But Erica wisely pointed out that, you know, we should be really strategic. These are very valuable and hard to find research participants. So I just wanted to have a group discussion in terms of like, does anyone have any ideas about any light process that we could use to make sure that we're utilizing these to the most high value research amongst us, or maybe amongst GitLab in general?
I mean, one thing that I can add is that I've mainly worked for TAMs or worked with TAMs to like get access to large enterprise customers. I think we maybe have some within like our first look panel, but I'm not entirely sure. I think it's relatively low. I think it's important whenever scheduling these research sessions with large enterprise customers, is since there's not a whole lot of them, trying to not overuse and, you know, over leverage that group, because, you know, they are so hard to access, and, you know, we're essentially talking to like the same handful of people over and over again, so that can influence the design. Even if we do see them as like, well, they're, you know, they're representing a large company that has a lot of users, we tend to just talk to the same individuals from those companies that are representing their set of users.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I wonder if we have some kind of process that we can also track who spoke to which enterprise customer at which time, so that we can kind of avoid what you were mentioning, Will, in terms of biasing for 3 customers or something like this.
And that's why we have kind of set up this, in part, one of the reasons why we've set up the enterprise company profiles and personas is that we kind of just want to cobble together all of those interviews and touch points and then like abstract them away almost if we can, so that we can really do the like small business enterprise comparison. So just advertising that we have that. So if we could get consent through that form that's linked in Slack to record and then put those in the dovetail that's linked there. I have it in Q4 plans to begin to like put those together. And when we start on that, like in a more full-fledged manner, which isn't cobbling, I'll be like really asking for help on Recruit for that, but it won't be until Q4.
Cool, that's all good. I'm just wondering, you know, because I have these relationships now and I would love to just speak to these customers anyway, but I'm wondering if, yeah, should we even just have informal conversations amongst ourselves to make sure that those customers aren't needed, or they haven't been kind of overused, as Will was mentioning, or should there be a more formal process, or does anyone have any thoughts on this?
We could start in that dovetail issue, just a table where we mark who we've talked to and bring them in. I have an intention to bring in the one company that I won't name so we can share this out, but that Will and Hayana and I think Gina has also met with. So maybe there's just like an informal table, but if it's in dovetail, maybe it's like accessible and we can cross-reference it with videos we have.
Okay, cool. So I'm happy to create that table. Did you say you wanted that on the GitLab issue that's about that enterprise? Or do you want it in Dovetail itself?
I think Dovetail, because then we can link
Okay.
it to the video.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I can set that up. Cool, thank you.
Katie, can you tag us once you do that too? Because
Yeah.
then I'll, if it's in my to-dos, I'll do it.
Okay, yeah, sure. Cool. I can pass over to Will.
Yeah, and I guess before I talk about my section, just to add on to the group discussion, I think this is something important that we could bring to the larger UX research team to talk about, like longer term strategy for how we deal with this. But I think Erica's on board with or on point with like how we're going to address it in the near term at least.
Sounds good.
So the only update that I have is that I'm halfway done with my benchmarking study. So I've gotten 10 out of 20 sessions complete. I've added the videos to Dovetail. I'm continuing to get them tagged. And I have another 10 sessions over around the next week. It might bleed over until the end of next week, but hoping to have it done pretty soon. And if there are not any questions, I'll pass it over to Erica.
Yes. So I didn't make bullet points about this, but my Q3 and Q4 plans are kind of set. So in a way that's good for my life. But then also just so you know that I'm, if possible, like for example, with Nadia's like job to be done stuff, I can sometimes fold in or like build out a research question if there's pressing needs. So just remember that we're locked, but we have some freedom within that structure. And then what I'm working on is just the secrets features survey. And that will help us to understand the trade-offs between the developer needs and the SRE / maybe security compliance, depending on who we can find. And we're going to field it for quite some time, because to reach those two groups, we know we need to go to KubeCon, and then we need to have a long email campaign. And so I'm sprinting towards that. And then also just say yay for the team that Nadia and Gina, maybe in reverse order, and I are working on a really cool participatory design activity where we're going to kind of map out the secrets workflow. So it's still emergent, but it's exciting. And I think we might have a new paradigm at the end. So.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that. So I know that there's some feedback there that I was going to provide. And I wanted to ask, what's the latest time that you need this by? Because you mentioned that you want to run the pilots next week. And I'm taking the Family and Friends Day on Friday. So I'm a bit short on time this week. So maybe you can just message me, let me know what's like the best way for us to collaborate on this, or point me to an issue, comment, or thread where I can jump in and help out.
Okay, I think you can come in after the pilots. We'll use the pilot
Okay.
to see if it stands and how it looks more.
Okay, sounds good.
With the secret features, we might need your feedback. I think we're actually good on that. With the survey stuff, and I think we'll combine.
Okay.
But you're good.
Okay.
Thank you for
Yeah,
asking.
well, I will catch up with you on Slack about that as well too.
Okay.
Erica, do you want to do your, oh, they're read only. Well, did you want to voice it? We have 4
Okay.
minutes.
Okay. Yeah, so there was a paper posted yesterday in the security research channel, and they said it wasn't a good paper. Which I think means it's like not, we can maybe follow it because it's not that technically complex and good. But I actually found it really helpful because it takes a few competitors and kind of talks about their different roles in access. And then gives an overview, and it gives not in a way that we should feel like concerned. Like, I wanted to be careful, like it's not that they've found a new idea about security breaches, but they basically go through and explain how in these different platforms, also including our competitors, secrets might be leaked. So yeah, so that's not like a pressing need, but I think it's a nice resource. And I also did this thing where when I first started and kind of saw that security was one of our product focuses, I was watching like DevSecOps conferences and taking notes. I tagged some of you early on, you might remember. Anyway, I turned that into a plus white papers. And so I'm like taking notes in that issue as well.
Thanks for sharing. I think this is exactly what I need to dive into.
Yeah. And if anybody ever wonders, like, what do we mean by hard code secrets? It's like right there. So I think this will be a good resource for us moving forward.
Yeah.
I have one other question for us before we wrap up. Would we, I'm just thinking about the order that we go in when we're going through this meeting. Would anyone be interested in swapping maybe next time so that people near the end have more time in the beginning? Seeing a lot of head nods.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
How about putting research first and then design, like for a change?
Yeah, we can swap the order of design too. So-
Yeah, I mean, doing it exactly the opposite of what it is today. So
Yeah.
Erica will start.
Okay. Cool. All right. I'll do that next time.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks.
Bye.